a God on earth. A human being who has realized the God consciousness is greater than a God who has not gone through all this experience and acquired that wisdom and maturity. This is the idea behind this evolutionary adventure of the divine consciousness. Now, this much having said this, I am open to questions. Yes.
When you speak of the Kundalini beginning,
Yeah.
say here, which has been my experience, and
Yeah.
so I feel relieved to hear that, because every model that I've ever heard of went the other way. So, is it then that after, is there then a pattern that it follows? My experience is that it's been working here and here, and really here.
Yeah, right.
Right. And then does it go that way, or?
It can, but main thrust is from up to below, but there may be side action. Side action can be, but the main thrust is like this. When it has come here, if only you relax, it will go down, and it will go and make you conscious of a center below your feet. Below your feet.
Right.
How do you contact the cosmic Kundalini?
By prayer, aspiration, and receptivity, waiting for it, praying.
A specific image or a tone?
No, you conceive of a universal power, Shakti, and pray for it, pull it, and you do feel a kind of slow impact. You may feel it as a kind of some sensation to begin with. You may feel as a kind of movement. Then you may feel as if there is a headache. It is due to resistance in the physical. You may feel, as somebody described, as like a cap on the head, tight cap. You can also feel while aspiring, but opening, you feel your skull is not there, because the consciousness goes above the skull, and you feel that big, and you have to see whether the head is there or not. These are normal experiences in this kind of yoga.
So, like, I've had a lot of pressure on one side of my head, and I can't find any physical reason.
No, it is not physical. It is a resistance in that part to assimilate the power or the charge that comes into you. The way is to relax, or you must take brisk walks which stimulates circulation and spreads it. Yes. Yes, you are right. She very compassionate, understanding, but if the resistance is too strong, it is hard. It beats it like a smith beating. Yes.
Is it possible for a person to be involved in both, in the Kundalini experience, with the energy both moving upward and down?
A stage comes when both are there. The descending Shakti provokes the ascent, or the ascending Shakti calls down the descent. Both can simultaneously take place.
So that when it goes down the front,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then you have to pull below, then it goes up the back after that?
It could. Generally, there is a circle. It can complete the circle.
Or it cannot?
It need not. It depends how far we are sensitive. It may, and we may not be conscious.
Could you say something about the psychological experiences that may be associated with the different centers and the different levels?
Yes, yes. The lowest center, the basal center, at the bottom of the spine, when that is awake, you feel an accentuation of need for food, intensification of sex energies, and a terrific heat all over the body. Whatever you eat, it is digested and you need more and more. That is, it is the center governing the earth principle, sex, food, and things of the body. When the center at the root of the genitals, the center of lower vital gets open, active, all kinds of petty desires, petty passions, petty movements like jealousy, anger, all of them are inflamed, because that's the area governed by the second center. When you come up to the navel center, which is the center of the large vital, they are all large movements of ambition, good and bad, ambition, sacrifice, dedicating yourself completely, giving yourself, abandoning yourself, courage, nobility, grandeur. All these movements proceed from the navel region when that center is open. When it comes to the heart center, it is a center of love and unity. You feel a great love welling out from the heart, a kind of impersonal love, not fixed on X, Y, Z, but on all. You feel unity, oneness with nature at all levels, plants, animals, human beings, the mountains. There is oneness. And when it comes to the throat center, the center of expression, externalizing mind, you suddenly become eloquent. You have no more difficulty in finding the right word and talking fluently. And you have a facility of articulating the feelings of the mind accurately. And when this forehead center is active, as I said, the vision expands, the willpower gains strength. And when you come to the overhead center, the channel is open to what is above. You always feel you are above nature, above circumstances, always in touch with the peace and the light. These are rough descriptions of states of consciousness as you arrive at these different centers.
Pandit, would you discuss Kriyas?
Kriya.
Because, in my experience, very closely tied with the Kundalini experience are emotional and physical Kriyas. As you were talking just now, I was thinking that many of the Kriyas seem to come from material that's associated with the lower three chakras.
Yes, Kriyas are spontaneous movements of consciousness expressed in physical gestures and postures over which one has no control. And the classical texts explain them as movements that work out certain obscurities or difficulties in nature. They have a purifying effect, an effect of release of the inner nature, and they, depending upon where they take place, at what stage, they are provoked either by an impact from outside or an unfolding from inside. And I think in the modern world, it is the Shaktipat of Swami Muktananda that has, what you may call, triggered a wave of these kriyas among those who are devoted to him. A number of them. They get terrified in the beginning, but he tells them, don't worry, things will be all right.
Would the concept kriya include also, let's say, the accompanying emotions or patterns in interpersonal relations all of a sudden being accentuated?
I think it is more individual.
I mean, according to the scriptures, does the definition of kriya include just the physical expression or also
Physical expression of certain emotional modifications. They just don't take place, they are the last result of certain emotional entanglements or disentanglements that take place inside. It is something that breaks through the inner tensions and the crisis. They break through these physical movements, and after that the people have a feeling of being purified, being rid of something.
So if, for example, a Kundalini is working on the second chakra and cleansing the second chakra, then a person in meditation could feel suddenly a wave of anger.
Yes, yes,
And that could be
yes,
considered
yes,
kriya.
yes. But every moment of anger need not mean that that center is awake. You see, it can come just out of a normal, reaction.
is there an explanation in the scriptures why it so frequently makes an animal expression and people make animal sounds or something go into it?
Because that level, lower vital level, below the navel, they are full of legacies of our animal past.
The sense of a genuine connection.
Yes, yes, past evolution. They are legacies. Yes?
We spoke before about the 5 positive and the 5 negative precepts of Patanjali. And I was wondering at the time, we all don't want to display anger or hatred or lust, but I just can't say to myself, I'm not going to do it. What could you tell us about samskaras in relation to this problem?
What exactly is the question?
Control question. Samskara control.
You mean how to control?
Yes.
Patanjali, later on, he gives a specific prescription. He says, instead of fighting with the negative things with us and prolonging their atmosphere and grip over us by always thinking of them and busy with them, cultivate the opposite qualities. It is called pratipaksha bhavanam, that is, you go on developing and cultivating opposite quality. Now supposing you are prone to anger, you develop the quality of forgiveness, understanding instead of judging. Try to be generous, try to forgive. And when that gets established, it automatically displaces the corresponding negative movement. So he says, stress on the positive counterpart, and that I have found personally very effective. Well, yes, 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 you are right. But it pays in the end. We score a goal. Yes.
Mr. Pandit, much of our work is with people here in the West who have done various kinds of self-exploration, meditation, often without a teacher. They're doing it from a book, or they're doing it with a group that know nothing about the power of these tools. And very often they start having experiences which are frightening to them, which they don't understand because of a very limited conceptual background, and go to the psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist will sometimes hospitalize them, sometimes give them psychiatric labels, sometimes tranquilizers. And I would just be curious what you might have to say in relation to that situation, and how we might help people, work with people who are going through this kind of crisis of understanding.
First, all these disorders can be brought under control by love. People who are fortunately circumstanced, to whom they come, they must show identification that you care and understand them and pour your love. That itself creates a certain confidence between the patient and the therapist, and builds a channel for the communication of the corrective movement without verbal instruction. A person normally getting angry, if you tell that person don't get angry, it won't work. It will make that person more angry. Instead of that, by love, your silent will and prayer, if that consciousness can be emanated, and side by side the positive things can be built up. Things must be so done that consciously or unconsciously the person allows peace to settle, relaxation and peace. And that these experiences are not such wonderful, so harmful, that must be made very clear. They develop a fear afterwards, and fear is the worst. Sri Aurobindo says that fear attracts the object of fear. Instead of fear, a trust, a self-confidence, trust in the divine or trust in the therapist, trust in oneself and self-confidence. The whole thing is, the environment must be changed. It's not possible in every case, but still, temporarily, the environment must be changed, because the same things always provoke the same reactions. A break has to be done. But with all these precautions that you take, with all your best will, you must always be ready for a certain backsliding, because there is something in human nature which indulges in suffering, which revives that situation. Because it takes a certain perverse joy. Again falling ill, again getting into that moment, exciting sympathy, reliving the past. So a groove forms, what we call samskara in Sanskrit, in yogic psychology, latent impressions, and they invite again and again. So it is the person's luck, but we should do our best through love, through understanding, and try to present the thing in the right perspective when the person is in a mood to understand. It is a very, it requires a lot of endurance and patience.
It seems that a lot of times people are more comfortable, well, not comfortable. They would rather stay in suffering
Yeah.
than to face the light. The light
Yes.
of the divine is so powerful that people don't know what to do with it.
Yes. And the ego is always afraid of being swallowed up in the higher consciousness. So it creates a fear. I'm going to die. I'm going to be suffocated. And that the fear of the ego at being dissolved takes many forms. And many of these disorders are due to indulgence in the ego. Yes.
My own experience is that when the Kundalini came in, I started having all kinds of physical illnesses around the area that it was working. And I was just wondering if you could say anything. Is that all resisting the Kundalini? Is that
No. You see, the body is accustomed to a particular rhythm. And when this latent energy awakes, the rhythm is disturbed. And the body takes time. It does go into certain disorders, certain sicknesses, till that mechanism of the body adjusts itself. It need not always happen that way, but it can happen. If you don't feel heat, you may feel, a kind of restlessness, a kind of upset, digestive upset, no sleep, furious jumping of the mind. All these things happen. But they are till things are stabilized, till it becomes normal. But at that time one has to be patient, detached, and allow things to work out without impatience.
Does the awakening of the Kundalini affect dreams? Dream work?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Because most of our dreams, have got to do with our subconscious regions. And the subconscious is terribly upset with the awakening of this Kundalini.
Why?
All those things rush up.
Why is it upset?
The subconscious always hides things, and only some things come up in dreams. Its business is to hide so that it may not be exposed.
Kundalini is a new word, from
Yeah.
but what I hear you saying is like, when this, if you have a feeling of a lot of energy and bliss and love, complete forgiveness, no fear of death, awareness of oneness with the universe and so forth, and that would be what this is Kundalini. Is that what?
It is not called Kundalini. Normally, what comes from below upwards is called Kundalini. But if what you describe, it takes place, it is obviously a working and a descent of a higher consciousness. Higher consciousness.
Okay.
I'm curious on how to word this, but when you're born into life with, let's say, a physical handicap,
Yes.
and for me it's like the right eye has been weak, and I feel it's not the right eye is weak, I feel there's an energy blockage, and I feel that as my life progresses in consciousness and whatever, and I can balance out, this will open up. Is there any teachings or any talking on like the right and left sides, why certain things?
It is possible. For that, you have to invoke the higher energies, the higher consciousness, to descend into you and work into you through processes of meditation, prayer, and offer up the weaker part to be rectified. Consciously. There must always be one part of the consciousness turned in that direction, praying for its correction. And sooner or later, you do see the results.
Many of the manifestations of Kundalini can be pretty dramatic and bizarre. So the question arises, how does this relate to what we call psychopathology or mental disease? And I wonder if you can think about, I think, from the scriptures, where such a distinction is being made. Somebody is actually mentally ill, or somebody else can appear ill, but it's involved in some kind of evolutionary healing, transformative.
Actually, I understand, sir. Actually, the mental balance may be upset in some cases by the fury of the awakened power. The mental balance is upset. If the person has done it without enough previous preparation, by way of having a sound body, by way of purifying his emotions, by way of entrusting himself to the teacher or the grace, without all these precautions, if a person rushes into it, and by ill luck if the Kundalini awakes, it can throw the person into a disequilibrium, and you have to treat it only as a mental case. Often it happens that persons are dramatizing things, and they indulge in it. They like to do it. They are separate from others, different from others, unique, and they like to dramatize. There, what can you do? You can only give an audience. So, extremes don't lend themselves for correction.
But what you're saying, if I understand correctly, is that there is a kind of gradual transition. There's no clear distinction. It's a matter of...
If there is not the total disequilibrium, like affecting the brain, for instance, if it is just a question of some illnesses, heat, intensification of desires and such movements, getting out of control, well, these are temporary manifestations, and as time goes on, or with understanding from all sides, these things get rectified.
Would you say that the attitude of the person who is experiencing it could be a critical, rather than the experience itself?
Yes. The same experience will have different results in different people, according to their mental makeup, their vital readiness, and the Aadhar, what is called, the physical base, whether it is weak or strong.
Do you think there is a difference between well, you made a comment earlier when you were saying that you have to show these people that the experience isn't so harmful, and at first you said so wonderful. And I wondered if there wasn't some deeper truth in that there's an enticement in talking about these things that can induce a desire for certain experiences which may be different from a true spiritual aspiration.
Yes. And there is also what is called a simulation of Kundalini experience. All such manifestations need not result from real awakening of Kundalini. There is a simulated experience, either because we want it or by imagination we succeed in having that pseudo experience, which is not real experience. And many times when such thing happens, it doesn't rise beyond the middle of the back. It doesn't come up, it just stops there. Simulated Kundalini experience doesn't come up.
We sometimes see in the new psychotherapies, experiential psychotherapies, which use breathing or music, very powerful Kriya type experiences. And I heard when somebody was visiting here from India that those should be called pranic, according to the Indian tradition, rather than Kundalini.
Yes, possible. Yes, but the difference, is very fine, because Kundalini itself is a pranic dynamism. Prana is the name for life force, and the activity of life force, when it is intense, can create certain moments of aberration. But Kundalini itself is a pranic dynamism. So I would put it, what the gentleman described to you as pranic experience, I will put it as simulated Kundalini experience.
Once the Kundalini is awakened, it's a sort of continuous process, isn't it?
No, it can stop even genuinely when it is awake. It need not always come up there. It stops at a certain level with many people. At many times it reverts to its position. It need not. But what I am saying is simulated experience is, you feel as if Kundalini is rising, but it is not Kundalini. It is some other energy.
How can a person tell?
No, that is by experience and watching. No one can't know immediately.
What's the connection, like if you have consciousness, awareness of when it comes down, all right, what's the connection, or is there any relationship between this coming in and the energy, Kundalini,
Yes.
and energy moving around in the body?
Yes.
And I've experienced that, moving around different places. It's hard,
What you feel as coming from above is purer and always benevolent, easy. What comes from below is mixed up in its origin. This mixed up, subconscious, the lower vital, the physical desires and things. So carrying all that stuff, it comes. So an energy coming from below is not that pure, not that beneficent as the energy flowing from above.
It's like when it comes up from below, it wakes up a lot of things.
Yes.
It's like a light,
Right.
spotlight
Right.
shining down here.
Exactly.
Then this stuff starts to awaken here.
Yes.
And you can become aware of things that have happened that you have
Yes.
forgotten about.
Yes, you are right.
In this life or previous.
Yes, they come up. Those memories come up. Yes.
It's a little change of subject, but I wondered if you would say a few words about Sri Aurobindo's system of education and the schooling available in Pondicherry, if you will.
Yes, it's a Sri Aurobindo had a lifelong interest in the new modes of education, and Mother has developed a center of education in Pondicherry, and new experiments in education are being tried in Auroville. The basics of this new approach are that nobody can be taught. true knowledge is within. It has to be stimulated to come out by creating interest, by exciting the curiosity of the child. And second, the child must be consulted in its growth. You can't just decide what is good for the child and pump your system into that child's brain. Third is that example is better than the precept. A child really receives his education more at home than in the school, classroom. Spends 16 hours or 17 hours per day at home. So the pattern of life of the parents and those at home, it has a great effect on the development of the child. It is in that sense the parents who are to be educated more than these children. Faculties of observation, of reasoning, of analyzing, grasping, these senses have to be trained. They are falling into disuse by the teachers doing everything and giving them ready-made on a platter, mechanical devices. So the memory power is totally ignored in modern system of education. And the aesthetic side of life has to be kept in mind, because the mind thinks or is influenced by what it sees. If there is no beauty in life around, it is hard for the mind to think of beautiful thoughts. So a beauty must be introduced in external life as part of education. The temperament and the line, the affinity of the child to a particular subject or interest must be found out, and the person must be encouraged to take interest in that. And last is, what's the kind of society in which the child is to live? The old system of education to fit the child into an existing pattern of society to earn his living, that will no longer work. It has to develop the inner personality, inner person. Once you develop the inner strength and make the whole human being, well, that person will find his way or her way. Education should not be a means, a job-oriented transaction. And the teacher should not just be an instructor, but a guide and a friend. A student must always have the feeling of achieving things, doing things by himself, rather than being imposed upon, to grow in freedom. The element of compulsion has to go. The element of emulation has to be stimulated. I think these are some of the main principles.
I would like to just bring something that we discussed at lunchtime, just to share it.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Sri Pandit mentioned at the beginning that when he was here first, that I asked a question about cancer. And the reason I asked it, because we had done work with cancer patients using psychedelics. And some of the patients independently had the insight that cancer seems to be some kind of misguided spiritual craving. That what transcendence means is to go beyond differentiation, go beyond boundaries. And cancer means de-differentiation of cells, where the cells are giving literally physical characteristics, differentiating them from each other, and going back to some early embryonal state. I mentioned that there seems to be an inverse relationship between the incidence of cancer and schizophrenia. Schizophrenic wards, there's very low incidence of cancer. And I couldn't reconcile it with the fact that many great saints have died of cancer. So I asked that question, and very interesting answer.
Yes. My answer to this question is, as far as cancer disease in common people who are not great spiritually developed people, but most of us are common folk. In their case, the mother categorically said that it is a result of greed, a greed in the being. It may be a mental greed, it may be a vital greed or a physical greed to acquire, to become what one is not, and an illegitimate greed that makes the cells do what results in cancer. She was very categorical that greed in some form or other is at the bottom of the disease of cancer. That is one. As regards great saints, spiritual teachers having cancer and dying of cancer, the saints themselves have explained that it is a result of the karmic load which they take over from the devotees and the disciples who come to them. When you trust a teacher, a guru, a saint, and entrust yourself to him, there is an automatic transaction. He takes over your karma, your karmic load. Much of it is burnt away, so to say, in the afflatus of spiritual power embodied in that person. But there is always a residual element of what is called ineluctable karma in the persons, and that has to be worked out by the person who takes it over. And an accumulation of such karma from others coming to a saint, they result in diseases like tumor, cancer, and things of that sort, causing intense pain and agony. But they go through it with full understanding, cheerfully, without blaming anybody.
Some of those young children, would they take it on from their parents?
Children having cancer. Do children have cancer?
Yes, an increasing number.
I see. I think
It's the second largest cause of death in children in the United States.
it may be an environmental pollution. Nuclear, yes, these things get into food, blood, and it is very possible that nuclear proliferation. Mother used to say that at times in dream, she would feel some strong odor. She was very sensitive. A strong odor, in the earth atmosphere. So, as an occultist that she was, it would require her some hours to dissolve that odor and the origin of that odor. She did it, say, about 20 years ago once, or 15 years ago, but she did not know exactly on the physical plane what's the matter. Later she was told that the Chinese had exploded a nuclear bomb in Tibet, polluting element. Now these things could have a bad effect. In Japan we still hear of children and people with their grandchildren being affected by the after effects of the nuclear bombs in Hiroshima. So many things may contribute.
You were saying that the saints would take on some residue of karma to working people. Well, I think it happens also just to people who are working with healing right now. They're working with
Yes, it does happen.
And so I've gone through many experiences in that realm. And you said there are processes that you should go through. What are some of these processes to help you eliminate more of these?
Usually, healers also, as you said, they take on, but they have got certain techniques. After the healing, I don't know how it works, but they do like that, and 3 times they do this, and they say it is over. They don't do it mechanically, but very consciously. I have seen them doing like this. They throw it and it goes away. Yes.
In Sri Aurobindo's religious ideas, is there a guru involved? One need a guru?
He says the real guru is the inner teacher, the inner guide. And if you are not fortunate enough to be awake to that inner guru, the help of an outer guru is advisable. But the role of the outer guru is over once he awakes you to your inner guru.
I'm going to ask a very foolish question now. How does one know when one has attained an inner guru?
There is a great sense of security and constant guidance. One always feels the center of one's life here and not outside. One is always feels guided. One lives from within, and that is the sign.
Can one communicate with the spiritual teacher on a level which is more than just feeling? Can one actually see this with the inner eye, this spiritual?
I see. Usually one feels. Very rarely does one hear. But normally it is an intimation, a direction in feeling.
It's a very subtle kind of
feeling. Yes. It is not loud, and it is very soft. And once you make the habit of listening to it, then it gets more articulate.
And this happens in meditation?
Not necessarily, even in active life. Yes.
So one can be continually guided.
Yes, exactly. Yes. If you are driving, if there is likely to be an accident somewhere, you will be guided to go this way. You may not understand why, but you, by habit, you learn to obey the direction. You just turn this way. Afterwards, you find. Yeah.
For me, to have that feeling of surrender to this power, means that I cannot literally follow any other person other than this self or this what's inside. I can listen to, but no human being will replace the direction and guidance that comes from this power that's in here. I can listen to for learning, for research, for awareness, for processes, for procedures, maybe for enlightenment and that kind of thing. But this voice in here comes before any other.
Yeah, yes, right. But that voice from that presence inside may utilize external agencies to help you.
Mr. Pandit, we've seen that recently in the last years there have been a number of teachers who are calling themselves gurus or enlightened beings who are not. And that a lot of us in our spiritual quest run into these
Yes.
people. A lot of people are very involved with their organizations and so on. Is there anything about how to recognize a true teacher and the obligation of the devotee or the student to test that teacher, to make sure that teacher is real, clear?
I think there are certain guidelines, but to test a teacher is not a good attitude. When you are in the presence of a genuine teacher, you feel a great peace, love, a sense of being purified. You feel a great humility. When you are in the presence of a pseudo, you feel great. You feel excited, full of power. I am going to dominate, I am superior, I am doing this thing. All that. It is a vital power emanating from that person which fills you with excitement and joy. And you are on the top of the world, But a genuine teacher, you will feel humble. You will feel pure. But characteristic, you feel peace.
Can you say something about light and dark periods during spiritual practice?
Yes. Day and night. This is a classic expression right from the hymns of the Rig Veda, dating 5,000 years ago, indicating bright periods, luminous patches, and obscure periods. What happens in spiritual life or yoga or any kind of inner life is that when we begin, the commitment to the ideal is only in some central part of ourselves, maybe in the mind, maybe in the heart, and we carry on. But a stage comes when the other parts of us which have not committed themselves, which have not been organized around the central part, they exert their pull, and there is a slowing down. These parts come up, put the central part at the back, and we feel dull, difficulties, obscurities, and this is called the night. But the way out is to endure, to have faith and persist, and gradually those parts fall into pattern, accept the lead of the central part, and again the bright period comes. The whole difficulty is caused by the fact that we are multiple personalities. We are not one. I think it was Gurdjieff who said that man is a crowd. I think we should stop.
Thank you very much.
Very good.